Okay, yeah, I've been kind of like, all day. Uh, I had planned on doing a little bit more than what I've been doing, but really, I mean, seriously, for about the last 4 days, I mean, I have been seriously, I mean, as stationary as possible. I mean, I'm so like staying in bed more and in my room than truthfully I probably ever have of any rooms I've ever had my entire life, really, truthfully so. But anyway, um, you know, um, I I was talking about the certain things about the um, upgrades to my equipment. Well, anyway, I was like right here, and I have virtually everything connected, and I'm fixing to connect my TC Helicon Voice Live Touch 2 vocal signal processor. Um, I just got a virtually like brand new one in the box, and plus I had one. As a matter of fact, the one that I don't know what it is, but the thing with this is that I'm fixing to connect one and decide, you know, about the sound and make sure that both of them are, um, you know, really going to be the decision of whether I'm going to keep both of them or actually I'm looking at maybe just going ahead and um, using one for a cash value. Um, and it might have been just a power supply issue at the time. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, it's all looking good. So I'm going to connect them both and make sure that's not going to be a question. But actually, I'm using one that I'm probably going to um, decide if I'm going to keep it or use it to maybe make another purchase as a trade-in or a cash value. But yeah, in any case, yeah. So I mean, it might be a good deal to have both of them. Truthfully, I mean, because really the way it's designed, it's like really cool. It's not any, it's not like any other design. The way it kind of like has a slot for sliding around like a stand, which is predominantly going to be like a pretty close to a 3/4 to a 1 inch pole usually, and it just like uh, kind of like leverages itself at a pivot point with the weight, and it stays stationary the way it's designed. Real quick release, with a tilt and raise and lower it like that. And as far as like a drummer, me being a drummer, um, having it that way, I mean, it's like a real quick automatic, adjustment. I mean, by far, I mean, it's like way faster and more effective in that way and accessible with like at least my left hand, which would be like really predominantly right by my hi hat. I have another table that handles both of my Yamaha EAD10 drum module for my drum electronic. It has a two bass hoop units that actually has a trigger in each and two microphones that mounts to the bass drums. I have two of those, okay? And the range of its pickup on that unit, on each unit, covers pretty much um, half. And since the bass drums are a little bit closer towards the center than the outer expanse of what would be, just say close, just for example, um, 290 degree. Because my drums are truthfully, I mean, like 180 degrees from left to right, from arm width to arm width, like that. And my two Yamaha E8010 drum modules, control boards, are like on a little table. In any case, the range of the pickup, I mean, when I connected it for a while uh, with the headphones, it sounded awesome. And then I let it go through the PA system, and I'm I mean, it's like phenomenally like loud, and really what I have is like I have pretty close to 20,000 watts right now of power as far as like the PA speakers go with the max potential. I have like four 3,000 watt PA speakers and two 1,500 watt PA speakers, and I think I have one 1,000 watt PA speaker. I have like seven PA speakers, and all that multiply with its max. And I have a 10,000 watt power amp. I mean, it cranks, man, for real. And the different type of electronic signal processing effects that I can like program and change the sound of my toms with like echo, delay, reverb. Uh, uh, I like the phasers, different types of sound with phasers, um, in combination with like a flanger and a phaser, combined. What can sometimes be found on a lot of a popular combination of even a guitar combo amp. Um, but it's similar to a crossface cancellation, which is predominantly the electronic engineering type of a terminology and schematics that identifies more so the schematic identifying symbolic terminology as compared to the actual like musician and operator of like a flanger, as compared to maybe a crossface cancellation type of where the terminology, where the degree, where the practice is and terminology is. You probably heard it throughout your years in like education. I guess you had to be there kind of thing. And sometimes that's so like interchangeable with like the meaning and principle. Yet when the degree is actually like there and used, and it's like has a different designated assignment of like a what it's actually called as compared to having maybe the same principle of a defined definition of in terminology that way. But yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's what I'm referring to. Anyway, so in that way, it's like a real good thing, and I'm going to maybe reconnect it. I have all my drums individually mic'd up, predominantly pretty close to individually. I have like 14 individual microphones plus the two Yamaha E8010 drum module units on each bass drum hoop, which includes two additional in each. So that's like it's like 21, 20, it's like 22, 23 um, microphones and only two triggers. I have a trigger in each of those bass hoop units with these drum module Yamaha E8010. Um, and I'm going to obviously get maybe at least one more trigger for my snare. So it will be totally a total of like 24 um, altogether, predominantly all microphones um, mic'd up acoustically and within the range and capacity of what the Yamaha E810 drum modules do, with grasping the acoustic as well as the trigger. And predominantly the triggers are like truthfully more so mounted on the bass side. Um, Although I do believe that the microphones I do believe that in addition to the trigger itself, that normally is thoroughly dependent upon like vibration and motion, certain types of friction, maybe resulting in maybe reverberation even from the unit, and translate maybe the perception of what sound itself as compared to actual impact involving normally a signal based upon like movement. The microphones, I think, actually translate the sound into a signal processing, which can be designated for any special effect and sound effect in combination. And it's like it has a real good sound. And I just tested them out and just made sure that it was like really good. Um, so I'm probably going to reconnect it all pretty soon, and decide if I'm going to uh, you know go beyond. I mean, really, I mean, with all the lighting, I have a really good setup with the fog machines, the strobes, um, the LED lighting, which I disconnected for another reason, which is anyway, like I have the 3D animated lasers and the special effects lighting and the lasers. Um, I have different types of categorization of like FX lighting, and when the fog lights are on, with like all the lights going through it, it's really good. But when the LED light strips are on, okay, I have a projector that's predominantly like in front of my drum set, shining all the way back behind me by my lighting truss, and I have a DVD player connected to my projector, and um, I look for it, and I've seen it before, but at the time, I mean, I just really wasn't looking for it. But fortunately, I mean, the one that I found, um, was truthfully the only one, really the only real choice for any like type of special effects and graphics in that way, and that was the HD colors splendor of a kaleidoscope, something like that. It's predominantly a 3D animated type of a expansion and contraction. It's considered a 3D, but personally, I think it's more a 2D. What a 2D isometric, I mean, just knowing what that means on blueprints with isometric, it's on a 2D flat plane surface. But when you see the impression of what 3D isometrics mean on just like a flat piece of paper, you know what it's supposed to mean. That it's like the actual participation going beyond just a flat piece of paper and in view with like actual participation. Um, the 2D ISO. It's kind of like a it's kind of like a surface to air thing, right? Some brain surgeon technology and terminology. Some bonehead erection like contracting. Launching some amphibious platform. Some projected estimate options in future. But hey, how about that ceiling thing, right? Yeah. So for real, okay. Anyway, so yeah, it's kind of like the Ukrainium and the lobbying strategy of like the not necessarily the cortex, but the lobes involved with like brain sections of the brain and the I don't know if I would really call it a hemisphere, but the spheres of two sides of the brain, then the cortex and the conscious, the subconscious, and the lobes and the cranium, the skull, and I was kind of like thinking about that when I was out there at the First City National Bank and like bellows, and it didn't even ring a bell to like the humor about the brains involving and that was like a big deal with a lot of iron workers and construction is like the erection thing, right? Because a lot of building in boom town, boom city, and a lot of big time construction going on, and involving erection. Really, that was like a brain surgeon's Ukrainium, no brainer, no fly zone kind of like issue, like a frequent flyers penis fair, right? Yeah, no fly zone, like a Mickey Mantle issue with like the marlin swordfish, yeah. Yeah, the marlin is the bird, and then there's the no-fly zone, and then it's like, well, I suppose you're really not looking for a Pinocchio thing, right? But aim high anyway, Air Force. But hey, how about that royal flush at the same time, right? So anyway, the brain's about the brain surgeon's terminology involving the brain itself, as compared to something that would be representative of like blueprints in the two dimensional isometrics of three-dimensional and actual participation involving like the erection man. So it's kind of humorous about the even the lobbying strategy. The toilet. The humor is kind of like it's like really I've been thinking about that for so many years now. It's unreal, but it's kind of like really kind of cool and funny at the same time. And um, so anyway, yeah. So I've been thinking about that humor about that. Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of like when I was out there in Bellows was like involved with the crane at First City National Bank. I think if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was like 24 floors out there at First City National Bank when it's being built. And it was like a big deal with like something years later that was like a song of like Aerosmith and Microsoft. As a matter of fact, Microsoft Edge. It's actually presented as um, the perception of an operating system. How true it is, if it's like really true, if it's actually an operating system, um, an operating system as compared to maybe an advanced browser, phenomenally, or some integrating factor that might present something that a normal perception wouldn't even consider a need to even look for or be aware of. But anyway, it's kind of like a building, those and being out there when they pour the concrete, for those each floor on a high rise. They use those like huge vibrators on the outer edges to get all the air bubbles out of the concrete, so that when it dries, that there will not be any possible way for an air bubble to be a cause of like maybe a crack, and that removes like virtually every possibility of that happening by sticking those huge vibrators around the outer edges of the floors to get rid of the air bubbles. Well, the bubbles is also a phrase used in like the 12-foot reserve banks in the New York Stock Exchange, involving bubbles in something beyond the gastroenterology issue. But the bubble's like a big thing for like a for as long as it lasts type of situation, involving sometimes usually in coordination. It's kind of like really almost truthfully, I mean, I'm finding and realizing so much of integrating um, principle of like proper English grammatical composition in so many different ways. I mean, it's kind of like even recognizing is about as serious as ridiculously involved, and realizing that the way it's been projected as information, and actually really realizing you're hearing the same thing in a different way, and it's like having a whole new meaning, and you're realizing you've been hearing it, and and then when it's kind of like hey, there's the accusation, hey, you believe me, man, you really do, man, believe me, so it's kind of like I started looking at everything like that. So anyway, um, in that way with the bubbles, that like a I don't know if I would really call it the trend, but it's kind of like a something about the inside information with New York Stock Exchange Commission. They talk about it that it's being frowned upon, and people could actually um, not like the I don't know if I'd call it a consequence or if it really is the exact opposite of what is portrayed as what inside information is, involving like stock or international importing and exporting. What exchange commission means when other monies from other countries are used, or what buying power means as compared to the value of what a country is, or maybe negotiating some sort of trade to accomplish more buying power in that way, involving, sometimes it's referred to as the bubble. Normally, normally, from what I've read and some of the information, it's like the bubble really it goes beyond really truthfully that, but it seems like it works in coordination with the movement and simultaneous. There's been terminology used involving like simulcasting. It's even constitutional to the effectiveness of amending factors of the freedom of speech and um, freedom of the press, and a considerable amount of the amendments in the Constitution of what having fair use in international law means is, as far as if you want to call it, whether intellectual is only a perception of having possession of and using it that way, yet a release of obligation, or if you want to call it responsibility, or the freedom of like simulcast. Yeah, it's phenomenally not funny to think that people could like possibly spend their entire lives working while others are just like duplicating a simulcasted version of like everything what a person has been in their whole entire life, and had the freedom of just like imitating the whole entire thing, and having the freedom of like not being like demanded to actually participate of what was considered to actually have earned that amount in value, and like an entire like generation of like not limited to an entire like continent, yeah, for real. So anyway, so like in a way, as far as like constitutional law and amendments in that way, uh, I, I mean it's like a whole different perception of what trend means, or what the um yeah. So I mean it's so like not funny to me about a lot of things about it, but anyway, yeah. The trend, normally associated with the phrase of bubbles is normally that there's a major majority of anticipation of like an extremely good movement, normally involving like importing and exporting. That's normally associated with the 12 Federal Reserve Banks, sometimes the Exchange Commission, and what that means to the New York Stock Exchange, and sometimes, and most of the times, it's normally above what is considered a given, a flat rate, an interest rate, if you want to call it that, or maybe what would normally be considered a royalty as a capped. Um, Anything beyond a capped uh, might give the same principles of like a flat rate, regardless if that involves like an interest rate, or borrower's terminology of international financial management, to accomplish a specific duration of intellectual to actually accomplish um, the profit, or anything that would be considered beyond maybe a royalty in the sense of what a capped set fixed rate might mean, both perception of what that phrase is, and be like the hedge, the hedge of like what interest-bearing accountability would mean during that specific duration, uh, uh, and everything that had accumulated beyond, the projected estimate, and the option in the future of whether or not if a fixed rate or a capsation would distinguish the difference between like a royalty of mineral rights or um, something in that fashion of like a annuity in that way, and a hedge fund actually representing uh, maybe uh, the beginning and ending of a specific duration um, of intellectual use actually being claimed for that specific duration during those most movements involving the 12 Federal Reserve Banks or exchange commissions and commerce and importing and exporting and playing horizons and all that good stuff about that stuff. So anyway, so like I kind of like was getting into that for quite some time, and I read that book, The 12 uh, Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, and I was looking for a whole lot of other information, and what I'd read the entire book. It's like 800 pages, 830, 40 pages, something like that, and I didn't even find what I was looking for. It's because I really didn't read the the concordance or the um, sources or references. And when I started reading it, I mean, it was like everywhere in it. I mean, I ignored it for like, I didn't, that's the only part I didn't read about the book for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I actually decided to read it. And I mean, it's like everywhere, all in the references, the sources, and the credentials of like everyone involved with the book itself. It's kind of like, hey, well, finally, you know. Anyway, a bunch of names is ultimately what it really um, had gotten to with predominantly the information being provided. But yeah, the names was more specifically the thing I was looking about it. But yeah, anyway, in that way, um, as far as the bubbles go, beyond you know, the yeah, ranking amongst some of the highest self-esteemed, halo venue stationary engineers thing about the literacy, the computer literate, and reading comprehension, and the marginal spread. Yeah, Y2K technology. Yeah. So anyway, some alignment in a parallel universe for real. So anyway, I thought I'd kind of like throw that at you. I didn't even intend to even talk about this part of it right here, but yeah. So I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go maybe fix something to eat, and I'm gonna send you another video kind of like this, but really about the reason why I'm contacting you. But I thought since I started talking about this, I thought I'd go ahead and just like include this as well. But anyway, maybe another music video or whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna take a break. Bye.